Burnett. To you, these 4 names might not mean anything, but to student athletes across the country, these 4 dedicated souls represent the final straw of the inhumane standards that student athletes have. 4 lives that were taken from us in just the span of 3 months that from the outside world seem to live a perfect life. D1 athletes, living in luxury at these schools, getting their college paid for while playing a sport, what could possibly be wrong? Katie Meyer, Stanford women's soccer captain, seemed like her normal Katie self just hours before she took her own life, after receiving a disciplinary email from her school after defending a teammate. Sarah Schultz, accomplished women's track runner at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, took her own life because she couldn't find herself out of the desperate moment of pressure and stress. Robert Martin, lacrosse goalie at Binghamton, never seemed depressed to his parents, teammates, coaches, or friends, until he didn't show up to practice one Friday, or unfortunately ever again. Lauren Burnett, James Madison University softball player, not only showed up to practice every single day with a smile on her face, but she always put a smile on everyone else's, yet she still took her own life. This mental health crisis isn't going away within these young athletes, and it's time we have to do something. Enough is enough. How many of you, and it doesn't just have to be a sport, haven't been able to quit something in their lives because they've been just doing it for so long and put so much time and energy into it? Well, I've been competitive baton twirling, if you don't know, since the age of 4 years old. It turned to something I would do every single day for fun to feeling like a job. I would drag my feet every day that I had to go to practice, and even the fun performances that I used to love turned into a long, dreadful day of tears. The pressure from my coaches, teammates, and even myself at a point when all I wanted to do was quit. And I asked myself, did I want to quit because I hated the sport, or did I want to quit because I couldn't stand the nausea I would get when I thought about going to practice or competing? I think the answer to that question is pretty simple. I wouldn't eat the Friday nights before I had long practices on Saturdays. I would cry myself to sleep. And I lost weight not once but twice for this sport, for me to have body dysmorphia. Now, I was able to have a long conversation with my mom, deciding to take a step back and do things only because I wanted to do them, which helped me regain my love for the sport. Also, the COVID-19 pandemic, although I was heartbroken with my nationals being canceled 2 years in a row, I was so thankful that I was able to twirl because I wanted to, and that it was something fun, just like when I started when I was 4 years old, and not because I had a big competition that I was stressing out about coming up. And I probably would have never been able to make it to the collegiate level I'm about to enter at the University of Minnesota, without being able to put myself before my sport, which many aren't even given the chance to do so. What do these pictures look like to you? Probably just the gorgeous multi-million-dollar University of Notre Dame football stadium where the Irish take the field, or the basketball arena with batons in the air. First round done. Woohoo! Can't wait for the second round. Well, guess who was supposed to make it past the third round and potentially win and didn't even make it past the first? Me. That moment where they did announce my name felt like someone took a knife and stabbed it through my heart. And I got no other explanation other than the judges that were judging me that day didn't feel like I should make it past the second round. But why, after all my other accomplishments, does my worst moment still hang over my head every single day? And that's the impact the sport still has on me. Now, I'm so thankful that I was never able to get to the point of self-harm, even though I've had many mental challenges, but I'm not going to stand here today and lie to your face and say that I haven't thought about my car crashing on the way to practice so that I could finally have a break, which I think many other athletes can relate to. Which just raises another question. Why, if I broke my leg or tore a ligament, would I be treated with such caution, but since I was dealing with a mental injury up here, it wasn't a valid excuse to not be able to practice? I think we all know who this is. Simone Biles, 32 World and Olympic medals, tied for the most decorated gymnast of all time. 32 times where she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Well, this past summer, Tokyo 2021 Olympics, when she needed the sport the most, the world stopped listening to her. The twisties, a sensation in gymnastics where you disassociate and lose awareness of where you are in the air, leaving your landing very uncertain. This past Olympics, Simone was dealing with a serious case of the twisties. Her flipping over 10 feet up in the air, no clue where she is, her mental health plummeting, Zero confidence in herself was a disaster waiting to happen, which led to her and her coaches having to make an
Must-see
extremely tough
TV.
decision to take a step back and withdraw her from certain events. And you can see here, she completely, unlike herself, cannot find herself in the air.
What? Must-see TV.
But 32 times where she got an Olympic medal or a world medal, she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, but was still labeled the American disappointment. Why? Because she wasn't perfection on the world's largest stage. There's no one who wanted to be on that Olympic stage more than Simone, after waiting 6 years with the COVID cancellations to finally be able to perform. But she was still labeled a disappointment. It shows you even the best of the best can't take a break when they need it. And shows you also that sports just don't become a part of life, they become life. Naomi Osaka, one of the world's best tennis players, but she would go into her post-game interviews after losing a match, which didn't happen very often, and be questioned and harped upon on why she lost the match. She loved tennis so much, but since it became into a full-time job, she had to stop tennis and take a step back for herself. Which again raises the question, why do athletes always have to be perfect? Just think, if you're out of college, there are people committing to be you. There are girls next to you and guys next to you that will take your spot in 2 seconds if you don't show up to practice every single day with perfection. You could be having the worst day of your life, and if you don't go to practice and be absolute perfection, there are people there taking your spot. Anyone's replaceable, and this is why athletes don't know the difference between hard work and pushing themselves so far, and pushing themselves beyond a limit that they can't even comprehend. Famous athletes speaking out about this, such as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Lindsey Vonn, Michael Phelps, and Serena Williams. These accomplished athletes are speaking out, letting their fans know that it's okay to talk about it, and not everything is just a win and a gold medal. Even the best of the best still have mental struggles, and they want to let their fans know that it's okay to talk about it. Morgan Rogers, Duke women's lacrosse player, committed suicide after battling mental and physical injuries. Her family created an organization named Morgan's Message, trying to take a shot at mental health to help other young athletes not commit suicide. This past spring, the JV and varsity women's lacrosse teams held Morgan's Message game in hopes to let their athletes here at Brewster know and all around the world that you are heard and you are enough. Organizations like Morgan's Message are trying to break the stigma and talk about it and make it normal to talk about athletes' mental health. We need to end this heartbreaking pattern and open up the mental health conversation. The message is clear. Recovery is possible, and let's take a shot at mental health. Mental toughness these athletes have make it hard to see when they're struggling. There's no doubt that most put on a front that nothing can affect them. But this is why help needs to be given without asking. It should be demanded in every single program, and the NCAA and society need to help end this heartbreaking pattern, and it starts with them. We need to stop thinking a normal school workload, 2 to 3 practices, workouts, away travels, games a day is normal for these kids. And this isn't even including a social life, which many don't even have. These expectations are way too high to not be receiving help weekly. It's understandable that sometimes there are no signs when someone is depressed, but it feels like impossible to know something is wrong, especially with these very headstrong athletes. But the "we didn't know, so it's not our fault" mentality that the NCAA loves to follow is not an excuse anymore. If there was mental health counseling and therapy made mandatory for these athletes, maybe these deaths could have been prevented. You can't control the way someone feels about themselves, but coaches and organizations can control letting their athletes know it's okay to have an off day and not always be perfect, and instead of degrading them, lifting them up. These young adults are silently crying out for help, and there is no more excuse of not being aware. Now, I'm giving this talk today to create awareness so that if you are battling with your mental health because of a sport, you need to do what you have to do for yourself. And for future parents and coaches in this room, to be more understanding if future kids are struggling or falling out of love with the sport. Even if you're not an athlete, you are heard and you are enough. No challenge is too big for you to overcome, and you will get through your hard times even if it feels like you can't. You are not weak by seeking help. Enough is enough. We need to start putting the person before the student and the athlete, otherwise we are at serious risk of losing all three. Thank you.